I planted raspberries once, just a couple of canes along the back fence. Looked harmless at the time. Now, they're everywhere, coming up in the lawn, through fence lines, even through cracks in my patio, and I still don't understand how that's physically possible. It stopped feeling like I planted them and started feeling like they planted me. And that's when I realized something important. Some plants don't stay where you put them. They take over. And that completely changed how I grow everything. And raspberries are just the beginning, because once I noticed this pattern, I started seeing it in a lot more plants than I expected. Number 15, raspberries. Raspberries spread through suckers, new shoots popping up from roots that travel sideways underground, sometimes several feet from the original plant. In the ground, that means every season you're finding new raspberry canes in places you didn't plant. Long walkway cracks, other garden beds, it just keeps going. In a large container, and I mean large, at least 15 gallons, the roots hit the wall and the suckers that do come up are right there in the same pot. Easy to manage, easy to thin out. You do lose a bit of yield compared to a full raspberry row in the ground. I'll be upfront about that. But for 1 or 2 pots worth of berries on a patio, worth the trade-off, for me anyway. Number 14. This one's a bit of a hidden one. Horseradish. The part you eat is the root, and it's intense. Freshly grated horseradish clears your sinuses in a way the jarred stuff just doesn't. But here's the problem with growing it in open ground. Any tiny piece of root left behind in the soil, and I mean any piece, grows a brand new plant. So a year after you think you've dug it all up, horseradish is popping up randomly all over the bed. In a container, when you harvest, you dump the whole pot out. Get every piece, done. No surprise horseradish next to your lettuce in July. It also wants deep soil, 12 to 18 inches, which a tall container handles easily and a shallow bed sometimes doesn't. Number 13, lemongrass. It's tropical, which means in most of the U.S. it's not surviving winter outdoors. Doesn't matter how well it was doing in October, one hard frost and it's done. In a container, it's the same plant, same growth, but you can move it. Bring it into a garage or shed before that first frost. It goes a bit dormant, sits there over winter, then comes back when you put it outside again in spring. I did this last year, not expecting much, and the plant that came back was actually bigger than the one I started with. Established roots, I guess. Cut a stalk near the base, and the cut-in has this almost soapy citrus smell. Doesn't come through on camera, but it's one of those small things that makes this plant fun to grow. Number 12, strawberries. In the ground, every single year, I'd lose probably a third of the crop to rot. The fruit sits on the soil, the underside stays damp, and within a day or two is gone, soft and gray. Slugs, too. Slugs love ground-level strawberries. In a container, especially something raised up like a hanging basket or a tower planter, the fruit just hangs in the air. No contact with wet soil. Harder for slugs to reach, too. Strawberries also spread through runners, kind of like a milder version of the raspberry thing. In the ground, they root wherever they land, and after a couple years, you've got this sprawling patch that's hard to manage. In a pot, the runners just hang over the edges, which actually looks pretty nice, looks intentional. Have you ever grown strawberries and had the same rot problem? Let me know. Feels more common than people admit. Number 11, blueberries. This one's a soil pH thing mostly. They want acidic soil, noticeably more acidic than most garden soil naturally is. Changing the pH of an entire garden bed is a whole project. Sulfur amendments, retesting, waiting months, and even then, the soil tends to drift back towards neutral over time. In a container, you're not fighting your yard's soil chemistry. You fill the pot with the right mix from the start. Acidic potting mix, some pine bark, maybe peat. Done. The plant gets exactly what it wants from day one. I tested the soil in my container blueberry against a section of my garden bed out of curiosity. The difference was bigger than I expected. The container held that acidity. The bed had basically drifted back within a year. Smaller detail, birds notice a patio container near the house way less than a bush out in the open garden. Not zero, but less. Number 10, rosemary. It's a Mediterranean plant. Dry, rocky, fast-draining soil is literally its natural habitat. Most garden soil, especially anywhere with regular rain, holds on to moisture way more than rosemary once, and rosemary roots sitting in damp soil for too long just rot, slowly. You don't always notice until the whole plant is brown and crispy, and by then, it's too late. I lost 2 rosemary plants in the ground before figuring this out. Both times it looked fine for months, then just died over a wet spring. In a pot with actual drainage holes, not just, well, it's plastic, so it'll probably be fine, excess water leaves, the roots don't sit in it. You can also put the pot somewhere that gets full sun most of the day, raised a little too, so air moves underneath. Same variety, same starting size. The container ones have outlasted every in-ground rosemary I've tried, by a lot. Number 9, thyme. Basically rosemary's smaller cousin here, drainage-wise. Same Mediterranean origin, same hatred of sitting in wet soil. But there's a second problem thyme has in garden beds specifically. It's low and creeping, and it gets buried. Mulch falls on it, taller plants flop over it, soil splashes up onto the leaves when it rains. The lower growth just rots out from underneath, even if the plant overall looks fine on top. In a shallow, wide container, thyme is raised up off ground level and away from everything else. Nothing's falling on it, nothing's shading out the lower growth. It also just looks better in a pot, not gonna lie. That low, sprawling, slightly woody growth spilling over a terracotta edge is basically what thyme is supposed to look like aesthetically. In a bed, it just kind of disappears into everything else. Number 8, oregano. It doesn't send roots traveling underground like some of the others on this list, but it spreads outward on the surface. Low, mat-forming growth that keeps expanding and will smother whatever's planted near it if you let it go a season or two. In a wide, shallow pot, it does the same spreading thing, but within its own space. You get this dense mat of oregano that's actually really productive. More surface area, more leaves, more harvest. Container oregano also seems to get hit with powdery mildew less than the ground version did for me. I think it's an airflow thing. The pot's usually somewhere more open versus tucked into a bed with other plants trapping humidity around it. Dries really well too. Cut a bunch, hang it somewhere dark for a week or two, and you've basically got the jarred stuff, except actually fragrant. Number 7, bay laurel. This one's a sleeper pick because most people don't even think of it as something you'd grow yourself. In its natural range, it gets big, actual tree big. Most yards in colder climates can't keep one alive outdoors year-round anyway since it doesn't love hard frost. In a container, it stays a manageable size. Container roots naturally limit how big a plant gets, and you get the same seasonal move indoors-outdoors as the lemongrass. Outside for warm months, inside near a sunny window for winter. The fresh versus dried thing matters more here than with most herbs. Fresh bay leaf has this almost eucalyptus-like sharpness when you crush it. The dried, jarred stuff is fine, but it's a noticeably milder, different thing. Slow grower, though, I'll be up front, not a harvest-in-a-month plant. But once established, it just sits there being useful for years. Number 6, tarragon. French tarragon, the good culinary one, not the weedy Russian tarragon, spreads through underground rhizomes. Less explosive than some on this list, but it adds up over a couple years. The flavor is this anise, almost licorice-like thing, used a lot in French cooking, béarnaise sauce, that kind of thing. Not really a flavor you can substitute for. In the ground, give it a couple years and it'll spread into a thicket that's annoying to dig out because the rhizomes break apart easily. Leave a piece behind, it regrows. Same problem as the horseradish, basically. In a container, contained spread, easy harvest, and you can move it somewhere more sheltered in winter since it's not the toughest plant in cold, wet conditions. Mine's outlasted every in-ground tarragon attempt by a couple years now. Number 5, chamomile. This one's a bit different from the others. It's not aggressive underground, it's aggressive with seeds. One chamomile plant left to flower will drop an enormous number of tiny seeds, and they're viable. The next season, you've got chamomile seedlings coming up in gravel paths, in other pots, between paving stones, basically anywhere a seed landed and got a little moisture. It's not a bad thing, ethically. The plant's harmless, the flowers are nice, you can dry them for tea, but it does mean your garden bed slowly turns into a chamomile bed whether you plan that or not. In a pot, the seed drop is mostly contained to that pot. You still get some spread to nearby soil, but nowhere near the scale of a bed planting. And honestly, a pot of chamomile near a path with that slightly apple-like smell when you brush past the flowers is one of those small sensory things I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I do. Number 4, lemon verbena. One most people haven't grown, but it's worth bringing up because the reasoning is almost identical to the lemongrass and bay laurel, just with a different climate problem. It's a tender perennial. Survives outdoors fine in mild climates, but in most of the U.S., a hard freeze will kill it outright, not just damage it, kill it. The smell is the whole reason to grow this thing, honestly. Crush a leaf and it's this intense, almost shockingly strong lemon scent. Stronger than lemon balm, stronger than lemongrass even. Used a lot for teas and infusions. In the ground, in most climates, you're restarting from a new plant every single year because the old one just doesn't make it through winter. In a container, same move as before. Bring it in before frost, keep it cool but not freezing. It drops most of its leaves and looks pretty rough over winter, kind of alarming the first time you see it, like you killed it, but then it leafs back out in spring from the same woody stems. Multi-year plant instead of starting over annually.
Number 3, comfrey. An interesting one because it's not really something most people eat. It's mostly grown for the leaves, which break down fast and make a really good liquid fertilizer or mulch material. But I'm including it because once you've planted comfrey in the ground, you basically can't get rid of it. The roots go down deep, feet deep, not inches, and like the horseradish, any broken root piece left in the soil regrows. People who've tried to remove an established comfrey plant often end up just living with it because digging out every root fragment isn't realistic. In a container, you get all the benefit, chop the leaves repeatedly through the season, they grow back fast, great for compost or as a mulch layer on other pots, without ever planting something in your actual garden soil that you might regret in 5 years. If you've never used comfrey for this, it's basically a leaf factory. Cut it down, it's back to full size in a couple weeks, cut it again. The container just makes sure that factory stays exactly where you put it. Number 2, watercress. The odd one out on the list because watercress actually wants to grow in moving water naturally. Streams, the edges of ponds. Most home gardens obviously don't have that. So in the ground, watercress either dries out fast or if you've got a consistently boggy spot, it can spread into a tangled mat that's hard to keep contained, since it roots wherever a stem touches mud. The container trick here is you're basically faking a stream, a pot with no drainage holes, or a pot sitting inside a tray that you keep topped up with water, so the roots are sitting in a shallow layer of water constantly. Change the water every few days so it doesn't get stagnant and smell off. I genuinely did not expect this to work as well as it did. The growth rate once it's established is fast, and watercress has this sharp, peppery bite that bagged spring mix versions never really have, closer to actual mustard than lettuce flavor-wise. It's a bit more hands-on than most things on this list with the water changes, but it's also one of the few things here that you basically cannot do well in a regular garden bed at all. So the container isn't just better, it's really the only practical option. And number 1, and this is the one that genuinely surprised me the most, sunchokes, also called Jerusalem artichokes, though they're not related to regular artichokes at all, are a root vegetable that grows on a plant that looks kind of like a small sunflower, tall yellow flowers several feet high. Here's the problem with growing these in the ground. The tubers spread underground, similarly to the ginger and turmeric type growth, except sunchokes are notorious for it. There are entire gardening forums full of people who planted a few sunchokes to try them out, and 5 years later are still finding new ones popping up every spring across half their yard. Tiny missed tubers regrow the whole plant. In a large container, the spread is completely contained. At the end of the season, you tip the whole thing out, and underneath all that tall, sunflower-like growth is this cluster of knobby, slightly ginger-looking tubers. The flavor is something like a nutty, slightly sweet water chestnut when raw, or kind of like an artichoke heart when cooked, which is actually where the name comes from, even though it's a totally different plant. The texture took some getting used to for me. Raw, it's crunchy, almost like jicama. Cooked, it goes much softer, almost creamy. I wasn't sure about it the first time. Now, it's one of my favorite, wait, you can just grow this plants on the whole list. And that's really the thread through this entire video if you think about it. Every plant here, the garden fights against what they need or it lets them get too comfortable and they spread further than anyone wanted. The container just removes that fight. You set the terms. So that's the 15. And when you step back and really look at them, they don't feel like 15 random plants anymore. They fall into patterns. Some of them aren't really plants you grow in the usual sense. They're plants you manage. Raspberries, oregano, tarragon, chamomile, comfrey, and sunchokes, they don't behave. They don't stay where you put them. They spread, they creep, they expand into whatever space they can find. If you plant them in the ground, you're not just growing them, you're negotiating with them every season. Then there's another group. These are the ones that don't spread, but they don't forgive average conditions. Blueberries, rosemary, thyme, and watercress, plants like these don't struggle because they're weak. They struggle because the environment is wrong. Soil pH, drainage, moisture levels. If even one thing is off, they never really perform the way people expect. But in a container, that changes completely. You're no longer guessing what your soil is doing underground. You control it directly. And for these plants, that control is everything. And then there's the last group, probably the most underrated one. These are the plants that fail because of space or soil. They fail because of time. Lemongrass, bay laurel, and lemonverb, in many climates, they don't survive winter outside, not because they can't grow, but because the seasons don't cooperate. In the ground, that's the end of the story. But in containers, it's different. You're not locked into the season anymore. You can move them, protect them, bring them closer to shelter when it gets cold. And suddenly, a plant that was annual becomes something you can keep alive for years. And that's really the shift this whole video is about. It's not just about what plants you choose. It's about where the control sits. In a garden bed, you share control with the soil, the weather, and everything underground you can't see. In containers, you take that control back. You decide the soil. You decide the drainage. You decide the limits. And once you start thinking like that, gardening stops being about restrictions and starts becoming about options. If this kind of growing makes sense to you, there's another video on high-yield container vegetables, the ones that don't just survive in small spaces, but actually produce more than most people expect. It pairs really well with this one, so that's probably the next place to go.